Bias in the news. Okay, today I'm going to talk about the news. But before I do, I have some questions for you. Where do you get your news? And how does that source decide which news to show you? How do you decide that the source is worth viewing? You're in control of that decision, aren't you? I'll bet a lot of you get your news from social media. Well, consider this well-known fact. Social media is plagued with bias and misinformation. It is vulnerable to it. In fact, studies have shown that false information outperforms true information on social media, and that nearly a quarter of U.S. adults have shared fake news with friends, whether they knew it or not. Fake news can be hard to recognize, so it's important to fact-check news articles before you share them. Then there's the problem of bias in the news, which can be even harder to identify because the information in the articles may be factually accurate. Let's examine this issue more closely. Researchers from Indiana University have identified three main types of bias that particularly plague social media. The first, which may sound familiar, is bias in the machine. Social media content is determined by algorithms, which are basically a set of guidelines that determine what we see. These guidelines are informed by our own activity. If we often click on links that take us to particular news sites, algorithms make sure this type of content appears more frequently in our news feeds. Algorithms also filter content that we don't want to see, such as, say, different opinions to our own. We exist in a filter bubble where content is comfortable, and it usually serves to reinforce our own beliefs. Algorithms work across all platforms, so there's no escaping them. The second well-known bias is bias in society. We tend to surround ourselves with people who share similar beliefs and views. On social media, we are likely to share content from our social circle, as again, it usually reinforces our own beliefs. Other friends will then look favorably at the content we shared and do the same. Eventually, we end up with what's called an echo chamber. The same views and beliefs are repeated, and there's little room for alternatives. So, we can't trust the system to share balanced content. We can't trust other people like our friends. Surely, we could at least trust ourselves, right? Unfortunately not, because the third bias is actually bias in the brain. We encounter tons of information every day. There's no way that we can pay attention to all of it, so our brains use a number of tricks when deciding which information is worth reading or sharing. One of these tricks is to view emotionally driven content, especially negative content, as share-worthy. Why? Well, it's believed that this is an evolutionary trait. The brain naturally prioritizes negative information over positive, as a potential threat that negative information might cause is higher. A research team from the University of Denmark found that this brain bias is being exploited by information sharing sites. News content with a negative headline is more likely to be shared. Another one of our brain's shortcuts plays on our ignorance. Basically, the less we know about a topic, the quicker we are to believe what we read about it. Let's say you read a headline that says, "Carrot juice helps cure cancer." You know very little about the health benefits of carrot juice, and you're pretty sure that there isn't yet a cure for cancer. However, because you know so little about the topic, you might actually be swayed into believing some of what you read. So, there you have it. Bias is everywhere on social media. It's inherent in the system and in ourselves. It benefits from our desire to make being informed less effortful and our tendency to stick with what we know. But if we really want to be informed, it's important to think critically about what we read and to seek out different sources for our news. After all, we may find comfort among those who agree with us, but we experience growth among those who don't.